Have you ever witnessed a moment where a single sentence can change the fate of an entire flight? A sentence that makes the air thick, as if someone has slammed the door of hope shut in your face. That morning in the middle of a quiet, first-class cabin, a white woman raised her head, looked straight at the black woman standing in front of her and said, "You don't belong in this seat." No shouting, no hype, just a calm sentence, but enough to send a chill down one's spine. Because sometimes the most painful thing isn't the tone, but the belief behind the sentence. You're not worth it. If you were the one standing there, someone who had spent his whole life trying to prove his ability, his worth, and his place, what would you do? Would you step back swallowing your shame, or would you stand tall, calm, and defend what was yours? Today's story is such a choice. A choice between silence and self-respect, between pride and the pain of being humiliated. And before we begin, if you love real-life stories, heart-touching and thought-provoking moments, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey. The morning in Minneapolis street, Paul, was colder than usual. The wind carried the scent of snow, the metallic smell of the steel bridges that spanned the city, and the steaming aroma of coffee from hundreds of paper cups that people grabbed on the way to the airport. In the bustling crowd, Nia Carter slowly rolled a dark brown suitcase beside her. She wore a long gray mink coat, a thin woolen scarf, no jewelry, no fancy accessories. Many people would have thought she was just an ordinary black woman, a business traveler, a woman tired from many sleepless nights. No one would have guessed that she was the CEO of one of the most influential cybersecurity companies in America, Shieldgate Cybersecurity. She had endured 4 days of back-to-back meetings in Minneapolis, exhausting discussions with the Department of Defense, mountains of emails and decisions made with her mind working at half capacity. All she wanted was to sit down in seat 1, close her eyes for a few hours, and go home to Washington, D.C. But that morning, as Nia stepped into the first-class cabin, a vague sense of unease crept into her heart. Not because the cabin was so bright, not because of the smell of waffles and fresh coffee from the forward galley. But here's the thing, she never stepped into first class without feeling like she was entering someone else's territory. After years of traveling all over the country on business, Nia was used to the kind of look some people threw her way, half doubtful, half scrutinizing. "How did you end up sitting here? Did you get the wrong door? It must be an upgraded ticket, a sponsored ticket." She had heard all the mumbling that people thought she didn't hear. But today she said to herself, "Just sit down, just sleep." Seat 1A, her quiet corner, was right in front of her. But as soon as she got there, Nia's footsteps stopped. Someone was sitting in her seat, a white woman with perfectly blow-dried blonde hair and a navy blazer with gold buttons. She had her feet up on an ottoman, her heels slung over her shoulders, her designer handbag taking up seat 1B. Didn't bother looking around the cabin, didn't care who was looking at him. She lay there as if it were her own chair. Nia took a deep breath. There were so many times she wanted to avoid conflict, but today she just wanted everything to go smoothly. She said softly, "Excuse me, this is my seat. 21A. The woman didn't reply, didn't even glance. As if Nia didn't exist. Nia repeated more slowly, "Sorry, I think there's a mistake. This is my chair." And then the woman slowly put down her phone, turned around, pulled her sunglasses down the bridge of her nose, and looked at Nia with a look that Nia was all too familiar with. An appraising look, a look from above, a look that says so much without words. And Lauren Whitfield, though Nia didn't know her name yet, slightly curled her lips. "Sweetheart, you don't belong in this seat." No one in the cabin made a sound. Even the sound of the engine outside the window seemed to be drowned out. Nia stood still, looking straight at the woman before her. No anger, no immediate response, just a slight, deep, familiar sadness. In that brief moment, old memories flooded back. The times in her 20s when she was stopped by security for excessive checks. The times when she wore a suit and walked into a meeting room but was asked by the waiter, "Which room are you delivering coffee to?" The times her successes were overlooked because people believed she had priority. She had been through so much. But today, the fatigue returned. Nia tried to keep her voice steady. "My ticket is seat 1A. If you need assistance, the flight attendant can help." Lauren laughed derisively. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to extinguish the remaining warmth in the cabin. "Honey, trust me. Someone like you doesn't end up in seat 1A by accident." Nia felt her heart tighten a little, not from anger, but from a deeper feeling. There were still people who believed in a world where human worth was measured by skin color and prejudice. Nia's reply was light. "Then let's call the flight attendants. They will explain. Not to win, just to keep it fair, and to preserve a little dignity for myself." She stepped back, her hand unconsciously tightening on the strap of her bag. For a fleeting moment, Nia thought, if only today were a normal day. If only I could just sit down and close my eyes. But clearly the fate of this flight was not meant to be normal. That morning, before everything happened, Nia Carter woke up at 5 a.m. like every day. At the Marriott, she silently folded the beige sweater she slept in, then stood in front of the mirror for a few seconds, looking at her tired eyes reflected in the mist on the glass. Those eyes no longer had the strong resistance of her 30s, nor the innocence of her 20s. They only had one thing left: the serenity of someone who had proven her worth too many times before skeptical looks. She tied her long curly hair into a bun. Little did people know Nia always tied her hair up when she went out to work. It wasn't because she didn't like her hair down. It was because throughout her career, the slightest stray strand of hair falling on her shoulder was enough to make someone look at her and think, unprofessional. When you're a black woman, sometimes people's perceptions of you start with your hair. Nia knew that. She accepted it like she accepted the fact that the world wasn't always fair. More than 20 years ago, Nia was 21 at the time. She was an intern at a tech company in Chicago. On her first day at work, she confidently walked into the office wearing a white shirt and black trousers. But just 10 minutes later, a middle-aged man looked at her and asked, "Conference room number 3 needs more water. Can you bring it?" She blushed with embarrassment and said she was a software engineering intern. The man just hummed and nodded, not apologizing. That night she called her mother, and her mother just said, "You have to be stronger than they expect, but don't let yourself become stone. You have to be strong and still feel." That saying followed her all her life. Back to the present. After 4 stressful days at work, Nia just wanted to go back to Washington, D.C., to her peaceful little house in DuPont Circle. The house had a backyard garden where she grew mint, rosemary, and lavender. Whenever she felt too stressed, she would make a cup of mint tea from the garden and sit on the porch until almost midnight. It was the only place where she felt she didn't have to try to prove anything. As the taxi took her to Minneapolis Street, Paul Airport, Nia opened the window a little to let the cool breeze in. The wind blew through her hair, giving her the feeling of being washed away her worries before she left. But deep down there was something weighing on her mind. Not the work, not the meeting, but a vague feeling, a feeling that the day would be more than just a flight. She dragged her brown suitcase, slightly scuffed at the corner, through security. She was used to being checked more carefully than others. Even as a CEO, even when flying first class, even with an official invitation from the Ministry of Defense, she was still used to security guards asking, "Are you on a business trip or visiting family?" as if a black woman couldn't be the one signing a multi-million-dollar contract. Nia looked around the airport that day. She saw families jostling to board flights to Florida, saw a young couple hugging at the departure gate, saw a skinny old man holding a wooden stick waiting for assistance. Those images made her feel that this world was beautiful, even if sometimes a bit harsh. On the way to the entrance, her phone vibrated. It was a text from Andre Collins, CTO of Shieldgate, and her best friend. "Nia, be careful on your way home. Don't read your emails anymore. Go to sleep." She smiled. Andre was the type of person who always told her to rest, even when he knew she never did. Nia replied, "I will sleep when I sit in 1A. 1A, just a number." But to Nia it was like a small reward for all the hard work she had put in all year. A private moment, small but extremely precious. At the boarding gate, the first-class counterstaff smiled and said, "Morning, Miss Carter. Welcome aboard." The voice made Nia feel better. At least someone recognized her as a regular. As she entered the jet bridge, she adjusted the scarf around her neck, feeling the cold coming from the air duct. But as soon as I stepped on the plane, that peaceful moment was shattered. When I saw Lauren Whitfield, when she saw Lauren sprawled out on seat 1A like someone enjoying a vacation in Malibu, Nia knew immediately something was wrong. It's not that she sat in the wrong chair. The wrong chair could have been a mistake. But because of her attitude, the attitude of someone who believes the world owes her special privileges. Nia stood up straight, keeping her composure, but her heart was aching a little. Partly from exhaustion, partly from disappointment. Not disappointment that her seat was taken, but disappointment that discrimination still existed even in the most civilized place, the sky. When Lauren said, "You don't belong in this seat," Nia wasn't mad, not really. She just felt painfully familiar. It's like going full circle, overcoming so many barriers, only to end up right back where I started, being judged because of the color of my skin. No one knew that at that moment Nia had a fleeting feeling of wanting to run away. Not because she was scared, but because she was too tired to argue with someone who didn't want to understand. But then she remembered her mother's words. "Stand up straight, don't scream. Don't give in." And Nia chose to stand back, choose to face it, choose calm as your armor. Little did she know that one small choice would unleash the biggest storm of Lauren Whitfield's life. And it was also the moment that helped Nia realize another part of herself, the power of composure. Some people come into this world with a map laid out for them, not because they are talented, not because they work hard, but because they were born in the right place, in the right family, in the right family. Lauren Whitfield is such a person. If Nia Carter grew up with effort and endurance beyond what was necessary, Lauren grew up in a completely different reality, a world where every door opened the moment she so much as touched the doorknob. Lauren's childhood, where privilege was the norm. Lauren was born into the family of Senator Charles Whitfield in Richmond, Virginia. The 8,000 square foot mansion with its white stone walls, oval pool, and Roman columns at the front door served as a reminder to anyone who entered. This family was like no other. From the age of 7, Lauren had her own maid. From the age of 10, she was driven to school in a chauffeur-driven black SUV. From the age of 15, she knew the taste of dinners with congressmen, CEOs, ambassadors, people who thought the world ran on their terms. Normal kids learn to fit in. Lauren, on the other hand, learned early on to be privileged. In that world, sentences like, "Let her go first. She's Senator Whitfield's daughter. Of course she deserves the best," gradually became her breath. No one wanted to displease her. No teacher dared to give her a bad grade. No one, absolutely no one, would say to her the simplest, yet most necessary sentence in life, "No." As we grow up, privilege becomes a distorting prism. By age 28, Lauren had landed a mid-level management position at a large law firm in Washington, D.C. Not because of her ability, not because of her experience, just because of her last name. Her co-workers knew it, and Lauren knew it too. But instead of feeling the need to prove her abilities, she believed it was the natural order of things. "I am Whitfield. That's the way life is." The truth was, Lauren had never been rejected, never had her worth questioned, never felt the judgmental stares that Nia had endured her entire life. Lauren didn't understand what the pain of being underestimated was, and that lack of experience became the biggest void in her personality. The event made Lauren believe in her privilege even more. A year before the flight incident, the Whitfield family suffered a major setback. Senator Charles Whitfield was accused of accepting illegal campaign funds from a private business group. The investigation was quietly pushed aside through connections, through influence, through behind-closed-doors introductions. Lauren witnessed that and concluded, "My family is inviolable." She carried this belief with her like a talisman. And whenever someone was bothering her, Lauren only had to mention her father and everything would change just as she wished. In Lauren's mind, power is a moral compass, a very warped one. Morning in Minneapolis, Lauren walks into the airport like she's walking into her own home. That morning, Lauren rolled her cream-colored Chanel suitcase across the polished tiles of Minneapolis St. Paul Airport. She wore large sunglasses even though the airport was still bathed in cold, pale winter light. The first-class counter staff saw Whitfield's name on the boarding pass and immediately changed their tone. "Good morning, Miss Whitfield. Right this way." Lauren was so used to it that she no longer felt it, like someone who doesn't realize they're breathing until they're out of air. She smiled, a slight smile on her lips, the kind of smile people get when they believe they deserve service. She didn't look the staff in the eye, just nodding enough so as not to be considered rude. The only thing Lauren could think was, "I deserve to sit in the first row of the plane today. Not row 4, not row 3. Row 1. Why is seat 1A so important to Lauren? Not because it's wider, not because it's more comfortable. Because seat 1A was the center of attention, the seat for the top person. A small symbol of status, something Lauren had pursued all her life. And so when she entered first class and saw seat 1A empty, Lauren didn't need to check her boarding pass. She didn't need to ask anyone. In her mind, there was only one truth: if there is any chair worthy of me sitting, it is this one. So she dropped her bag on seat 1B, took off her shoes and sat in seat 1A, as if she was taking back the seat that belonged to her. The first signs of Lauren's personality. Sitting in the cabin, Lauren pulled the covers back and opened her phone. Instagram messages from friends, an invitation to a gala, an email from the family lawyer about needing to clean up the media trail. Lauren wasn't worried. She believed everything would work out like it always did. She believed in the Whitfield name more than she believed in herself. She looked around. The elderly man in seat 2A was trying to put his suitcase in the overhead compartment. Lauren muttered, "First-class standards just keep dropping." A young flight attendant standing nearby heard but smiled politely. Lauren paid no attention. To her, the flight attendants were background. Everyone in the cabin was background except her. When Nia Carter walked in, Lauren didn't notice right away. She just caught a glimpse of a figure in the window mirror. But when Nia stopped in front of her, Lauren pulled down her glasses a bit. Her eyes scanned Nia from head to toe naked. No luxury watches. Casual jacket. Neat hairstyle. There was no sign of social class by Lauren's standards. And a thought came to her mind. A thought that formed effortlessly. She must be lost. This person must have gotten into the wrong cabin. When Nia said, "This is my seat," Lauren felt insulted. Not because of the words, but because of the thought that someone who didn't belong here would dare stand there asking her to leave seat 1A. In Lauren's twisted inner world, it wasn't about the wrong chair, it was about social position. One thing Nia didn't know: Lauren was scared that morning. What made Lauren react so strongly wasn't just her personality. It was also because Lauren was hiding a hidden fear. She knew her father was under further investigation. She knew some documents were being reviewed. And she knew that what the family had been hiding for the past 15 years was beginning to come out. That morning her lawyer texted her, "Keep a low profile this week." But Lauren didn't know what a low profile was. She was nervous and insecure, and she took that reaction out on the first person who made her feel a threat to her status. And that person is Nia Carter. If Lauren had a little self-awareness, maybe she would have stopped. Maybe she would have apologized. Maybe she would have checked her boarding pass. Maybe the story of that flight would have been over in 30 seconds. But Lauren didn't have that. She had everything except one important thing: the ability to see others as human. And that's why, when Nia steps in to talk softly, Lauren chooses to push things further. So far that even Lauren couldn't imagine the terrible price she would pay. The atmosphere in the first-class cabin was like someone had just spilled a drop of black ink into a glass of water. No one said anything, but everyone could sense that something was wrong in that quiet cabin. Nia Carter stood there, her hand still on the strap of her bag, her heart beating slow and heavy as if someone had dropped an invisible rock on her chest. She didn't want to start the day with an argument. She didn't want to be the center of attention, but she couldn't back down, couldn't swallow what she knew was wrong. Gently, soft but firm, she said again, "Excuse me, but this is really my seat. Could you check my boarding pass?" Lauren Whitfield picked up her mimosa, turning it around in her hand as if admiring its color more than listening to what she was saying. Then, without looking at Nia, she replied, "Sweetheart, I told you, this seat isn't for you. You're in the wrong cabin." A man in seat 2A turned slightly. A woman in 3C looked up slightly with her eyes open. Emily Reyes, the first-class stewardess, stood in the galley ahead, her neck slightly cocked as if to ascertain what was going on. Nia took a deep breath. She wasn't angry, she wasn't reacting, but her eyes were slightly downcast, a hurt that only those accustomed to suffering could see. She added in a low, clear voice, "My boarding pass says 1A. Could you please check it again?" Lauren finally looked at Nia. That look, the look one uses when evaluating whether a dress is worth buying. Cold, superficial, and full of contempt. "You're bothering me, and I don't like being bothered," Lauren continued, her voice slightly emphasized enough for a few nearby passengers to hear clearly. "If you want to fly first class, you should book your ticket properly. Don't rely on luck. 1 beat, 2 beats." No one said anything, until Emily Reyes walked up quickly. "Hi, I'm Emily." "What's up?" Nia smiled politely, though her smile was a little shaky. "I think there was a seat mistake. My boarding pass is 1A, but the lady in the seat said the seat was hers." Emily turned to Lauren, still keeping her voice pleasant. "Excuse me, can I see your boarding pass?" Lauren smiled faintly. "Why? Don't you think anyone is more suitable for this place than me?" Emily remained polite. "Yes, I just need to check the information." Lauren flipped through her purse and pulled out the paper ticket. She held it between 2 fingers as if it weren't worth touching. Emily checked. And for a moment Emily's eyes froze. Her hand tightened on the edge of the tablet. Then Emily swallowed, turned around and said, very softly, "Lauren, your boarding pass is 4D. A long, long silence. Nia didn't say anything. She knew that if she spoke up now, the situation would only get worse. Lauren blinked only once, not once, not once, just once. But in that split second, anyone who paid attention could see that she was not happy to be exposed in front of others. "I have to sit in row 1, Lauren said slowly. "Row 4 isn't good for my back. I have a problem." Emily hesitated. "Yes, I understand, but seat 1A belongs to Nia-san." "I can't," Lauren interrupted, her voice as sharp as broken glass. "You can't do anything, Emily, but I can. Get your supervisor out here." Emily took a step back. Nia saw that the young girl's hands were shaking slightly. She didn't know whose side to take. On one side was the powerful guest. On the other side was the right guest. The truth is sometimes weak because it is quiet. Nia gently placed her hand on the seat in front of her as if to reassure herself and Emily. "It's okay," Nia said. Lauren let out a dry laugh. "Did you hear? She understands her place too." Nia stood still. Her breathing was even, her eyes unwavering. But in her heart a tiny crack had appeared, hard to see. But it was spreading, not because she felt weak, not because she wanted to avoid Lauren, but because she was reliving those old moments when people made her feel like she wasn't good enough, not worthy enough. Nia's calm facade is a choice that must be repeated 1,000 times in a lifetime. Supervisor doesn't come, Emily has to solve it herself. Emily excused herself for a few minutes. She returned with a wary look in her eyes but a determined voice. "Lauren, you need to go back to your seat so we can close the door." Lauren raised her eyebrows. "Are not." One word, light but heavy as a rock. "Ma'am, if you don't move we can't take off." Lauren crossed her arms and leaned back in seat 1A, as if turning the misbehavior into comfort. "I'm not going anywhere." Lauren jerked her head toward Nia, "can go up to row 4D. That seat is fine." For the first time the cabin began to murmur slightly. A middle-aged woman in seat 2B muttered, "What the hell is going on?" A man in row 3 said, "She literally stole the seat." Nia heard everything, but she didn't let herself react emotionally. She just said very softly but clearly, "I paid for seat 1A. I want to sit in my correct seat." Lauren crossed her arms and raised her eyebrows. "Money, sweetheart. I don't think you understand. Not everyone who pays gets to sit in this chair. There are people who are more suitable." Emily touched the emergency button. The breathing in the cabin seemed to stop. A soft ding sounded. The flight attendant call light lit up overhead. The last straw. Lauren pushed herself to the limit. A young passenger was filming a video on his phone. Lauren noticed and was immediately startled. "Stop recording me, you don't have my permission." Lauren's voice was suddenly louder than usual. No longer the cool, reserved kind, more like the kind you hear when your ego is bruised. Emily raised her hand, trying to calm down. "Lauren, please speak a little more quietly." Lauren stood up. It was a moment that made the whole cabin take a breath. The mimosa cup tilted with her vigorous movement. The golden liquid fell in small streams onto the carpet. A few drops splashed onto the top of Nia's shoe. Emily's eyes widened. Another flight attendant standing nearby looked confused. Lauren didn't notice. She just pointed at Emily. "Are you threatening me? Huh? Do you know who I am?" Nia's voice remained calm. "Enough. You can't do that to other people." Lauren turned her eyes sharp as knives. "Shut up. I haven't given you permission to speak." This time, the whole cabin erupted in, "Oh my God," cries. A man whispered. She crossed the line. But Nia still stood firm. She didn't move forward. She didn't retreat. She didn't react with the anger Lauren was trying to force out of her. She just said more to herself than to Lauren, "I won't give up my seat, and you have no right to tell me that." Lauren sneered. "Sweetheart, in this world there are people who are destined to sit in the back. You know that. That statement isn't just aimed at a seat. It's a knife aimed at a person's worth." And it pushed the story to its ultimate limit. Emily trembled as she pressed the emergency call button. "Captain to first class. Captain to first class." In that moment, Nia closed her eyes for a second. Not because she was afraid, but because she knew this was no longer a matter of two women fighting over a chair. It has become a matter of prejudice, a matter of dignity, a matter of self-respect. And the fate of the flight would change as soon as the cockpit door opened. The ding echoed through first class like a gentle tap on still water. But the stillness was no longer peaceful. It was about to crack. It was about to shatter. Passengers began to adjust their posture. Some lowered their heads to avoid eye contact but opened the paper slightly wider to get a better view. A young man tried to stop the video recording, but his shaking fingers caused the screen to flash again. Emily Reyes stood in the aisle, her hands clasped together in front of her stomach. She took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the cabin crew call panel, as if praying for the captain to arrive sooner. Nia stood still, not backing away, not moving. The only thing moving in her was her breathing, steady and deliberate, as if this calmness was the only armor she had in that moment. Lauren, on the other hand, suddenly sat down in seat 1, arms crossed, chin up like a winner. She smiled. Finally, they called the authorities. "Now let's see who should get off this chair." Her voice was as light as the wind through the glass, but in the cabin it was as heavy as stone. Emily wanted to reply, but her lips trembled so much that she couldn't speak. Nia gently placed her hand on the arm of a nearby chair and looked at Emily with gentle eyes. It's okay, just stand there. No one will blame you. Lauren laughed sarcastically. Sweetheart, stop pretending to be nice. What you're doing is only making the situation worse. But Nia didn't reply. Her silence was the loudest answer. The cockpit door opened. Clap, clear, deep, heavy. All the passengers looked up at once. Captain James Walker stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the close-cropped white hair of a former military pilot. His face inspired instant trust, not because of its sternness, but because of the calmness of its eyes, which observed everything without missing a single detail. He looked around the cabin, at the mimosa-soaked carpet, at Emily's worried expression, at the defiance on Lauren's face. Finally, he looked at Nia. Just a second, but in that second he realized something Lauren didn't. He had seen Nia Carter's name before, not in the papers, not on television, but in internal company documents, files related to Shieldgate Cybersecurity's security systems. Shieldgate is the company responsible for protecting the airline's flight data navigation systems and fleet management software. Nia is no ordinary person. She is a true influencer in the aviation industry. Captain Walker understood immediately. This was not simply a matter of seats. It was a matter of principle. It was a matter of respect. And it was a matter of safety. He stepped forward, his voice low but clear. All right, tell me what happened. Lauren immediately stood up like an actor stepping onto a stage where the lights had just come on. Thank God, someone in charge is finally here. Captain, Lauren pointed at Nia, is causing trouble. She's making noise, arguing with me and refusing to leave this seat. I have a back problem and I need seat 1A. Nia remained standing calmly. Emily tried to speak, but was interrupted by Lauren. And this flight attendant, Lauren jerked her head toward Emily, tried to force me to change seats. I will sue you if Captain Walker raised his hand slightly. Just a gesture. But it silenced Lauren immediately. He turned to Emily Reyes' report. Emily's voice trembled slightly. Yes, Captain, Miss Lauren is sitting in seat 1A, but her boarding pass is 4D. Miss Nia is a passenger with a valid ticket for seat 1A. When we asked Miss Lauren to move to the correct seat, she refused. There were also insulting words. Captain Walker looked at Lauren. Is that right? Lauren lifted her chin. I don't sit in row 4. I don't belong in row 4. That statement, that affirmation, that tone, it's not just a refusal, it's an attitude. Captain Walker looked straight into Lauren's eyes for a few more seconds, then turned to Nia. Miss, do you have anything to say? Nia spoke softly enough for everyone to hear but not imposing. I just want to sit in the seat I bought. And I want everyone in the cabin to be treated with due respect. No more, no less. A sentence that made several passengers nod slightly. Lauren laughed. Respect. The only thing that needs respect here is people of appropriate status. And I believe Captain understands that better than anyone. Captain Walker looked at Lauren, his eyes calm but cold as steel. Miss Whitfield, a person of proper standing, is a rule keeper, not a rule breaker. Lauren stiffened. He continued, I now ask you to stand up and return to your proper seat. Lauren took a step back, her hands outstretched. No, I'm not going anywhere. You can't force me. My father is Captain Walker, interrupted, his voice stern. I don't care who your father is. I'm in charge in this cabin, and you're interfering with flight operations. Lauren blushed. You're discriminating against me because I'm a white woman. And Captain Walker raised his voice for the first time. Enough! The whole cabin was silent. His voice was deep, strong, and irrefutable. You have the right to leave the plane now, or I will call security to remove you. Lauren chuckled. Security? Because I don't want to sit in row 4. Captain Walker looked her straight in the eye. No, you were removed for obstructing the flight crew. That's a federal offense. Lauren was stunned. She hadn't thought it would go this far. A man in 2A whispered, she's done. Another woman shook her head. This is unbelievable. Lauren looked around the cabin. No one was on her side. No one. She turned back to Captain Walker, her voice urgent. You can't do that. You don't know who I am, Captain Walker replied softly but sharply. I know you are a passenger who is breaking the rules. Then he pressed the button on the intercom. Security to first class. Remove a passenger for disruptive behavior. At that moment, Lauren's face paled. Not because she was afraid of being fired, but because for the first time in her life, she had reached a limit that privilege could not save. Nia looked at the whole scene. Her heart was not happy, not complacent. It was just a quiet sadness. The sadness of seeing a person push himself into tragedy because he could not look at others with the minimum respect. A minute later, security appeared. Officer Mitchell, tall with a serious but gentle face. He said briefly, Miss Whitfield, please leave the plane. Lauren stepped back, her voice shaking with anger. I will sue all of you, Officer Mitchell simply replied. We'll talk about that later. Now please come with me. And so, for the first time in her life, Lauren had no choice. Led away, in silence. No one to help with the luggage. No one to say, I'll back you up. That day, seat 1A, which she tried to hold on to at all costs, became the milestone that marked her free fall. As for Nia, she just looked on, her eyes downcast, her heart light, as if she had just put down a stone that she never wanted to carry in the first place. As Officer Mitchell ushered Lauren Whitfield out of first class, a silence swept through the cabin like a cold wind across a field. It wasn't a comfortable silence. It was the kind where you could hear your heartbeat, heavy, slow, and thoughtful. The plane door closed, but no one breathed a sigh of relief. Captain James Walker was still standing there, his hand on the back of seat 1C, his eyes scanning the cabin as if assessing everyone's stability. And then he said something that made Nia's heart clench. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the disturbance that just occurred, we are forced to postpone takeoff. A heavy thud echoed through the cabin. A man sighed. Oh, come on. I have a meeting in Chicago. Another woman was mildly annoyed. I left my kids at home for this flight. Seriously, complaints started to come in, and even though they weren't directed at Nia could feel it. Each sigh made her heart tighten a little. Not because she felt guilty, but because she understood the feeling of being blamed for causing trouble, even when she was the one being wronged. A familiar feeling, like an old scar, was being pulled open. The passengers began to talk. An elderly man in seat 2 leaned over. Are you okay, Miss Carter? Nia smiled slightly. I'm fine, thank you. He shook his head. I have never seen anyone as brazen as her. You keep your composure very well. Nia replied, I don't want to make everyone more stressed. It's true. Even when she's being treated badly, Nia's first thought is always about how the people around her feel. Partly because that's her nature. Partly because when you're a black person in high positions, you have to constantly remind yourself, don't let others see you as someone who lacks restraint. Emily Reyes returns. Emily approached, her face tired but her eyes full of gratitude. Thank you for staying calm, Emily said softly. No one deserves that. Nia looked at Emily's hands, which were still shaking slightly. She let out a slow breath and said, You've worked hard too. You did nothing wrong. Emily smiled slightly, but her eyes were red as if she was about to cry. You know, I've been doing this job for 7 years. I've met difficult passengers, been yelled at and insulted, but never have I been as scared as I am today. Nia tilted her head. Afraid that I'll be offended, Emily shook her head. No, I was afraid she would upset you and then people would blame you. I saw that happen. A silence fell between the two. Nia placed her hand on Emily's shoulder, as light as touching a flower petal. Thank you for taking care of me. Emily pursed her lips, nodded slightly, and turned back to the galley. But those words stayed with Nia longer than she thought. Captain Walker returned to the cabin. The captain stepped out with his usual composure. We are currently rearranging seating plans, ensuring security, and confirming cabin status. Please hold on a moment. Then he turned to Nia. "Miss Carter, please let me apologize on behalf of the company." Nia shook her head slightly. "No need, Captain. I understand you're just doing your job." But Captain Walker saw her differently, the eyes of someone who had seen more than others knew. "You handled that situation well," he said quietly. "Not everyone can keep their cool like that." Nia just smiled. "I'm used to it." And that made Captain Walker silent for a few seconds. He nodded slightly, then turned away. The cabin fell into a state of waiting. Wait, a small word but can make people restless. Some passengers opened their laptops to work. Some made calls. Some sighed wearily. As for Nia, she leaned her head back on the chair and closed her eyes. Not to sleep, just to relive the peaceful 30 minutes before it all started. But in her mind she saw Lauren, smirking, lifting her chin, saying, "You don't belong in this seat." That statement isn't about seats. It's a statement that many people of color have heard in one way or another, and it brought back Nia's old memories. Flashback. Nia was 32 years old. She wasn't the CEO yet. She was just one of the best cybersecurity experts in the group, the one who discovered the security system flaw earlier than the team lead. That day she presented to the board. There were 12 people in the room, all white men except her. As Nia spoke, someone interrupted. "Are you sure? That sounds a bit emotional," even though the report was entirely based on numbers. Another person asked, "Do we have someone to vouch for Miss Carter, someone with more practical experience?" A young man in the team stood up. "Sir, it was Nia who discovered the error." The director raised his hand. "She might be right, but I think we should double-check, just in case." Nia stood there, her hand gripping the pen, but her voice remained calm. "I understand. Let me prepare more reports." As she walked out of the room, the young man in the team ran after her. "Aren't you angry? They don't treat anyone else that way." Nia smiled, but her eyes said otherwise. "What's the point of being angry? They won't change because I'm angry, but they will change when I prove myself." A few months later, the company system almost collapsed because of the error Nia had warned about. And by then they no longer dared to doubt her. But the pain of that moment has never completely gone away. Back to reality on the plane. The cabin speaker blared, "Boarding complete. Please prepare to depart." Nia opened her eyes. Her heart relaxed a little. But just as the cabin became quiet, a security guard entered and handed Captain Walker a manila envelope. The captain opened it and skimmed it. His eyes changed. He looked at Nia, then at Emily, then at the boarding gate. In that moment everyone understood. This flight was not out of trouble yet. Walker whispered to Emily loud enough for a few people nearby to hear. Port Authority requested further testimony due to the recent incident. And video just appeared online. Emily paled. "What video?" "Newly posted." Walker nodded. "Very new. And it seems to be spreading." A young passenger behind him exclaimed, "Oh, it's going viral. Already at 20,000 views." Nia turned back, slightly startled. Turns out someone was filming the whole thing while Lauren was screaming. And now, the whole world was about to see what had just happened in just a few minutes. The moment Nia feared the only thing she rarely feared, not the humiliation, not the judgment from outsiders, but she was afraid the story would be distorted. Afraid that people would just see a few seconds of tension and say, "Oh, just two people arguing." Afraid that her pain would be turned into a topic of conversation, not a lesson. She sighed and closed her eyes. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then she opened her eyes and said very softly, "If you want to ask anything else, I'm available. I have nothing to hide." Captain Walker nodded respectfully. "You don't have to do anything more, Miss Carter. We're on your side." And that was the only moment all morning. Nia felt her heart warm a little. Not because she won, but because, finally, someone saw her for who she was. As the door closed for the second time, the soft rumble of the engines echoed through the floor, blending with the warm yellow lighting of the first-class cabin. If one did not know what had just happened, one might think it was just a normal flight. Tired passengers preparing for departure, flight attendants checking seatbelts, and familiar instructions blaring over the cabin speakers. But those sitting inside knew that things were changing in ways no one could have expected. A young man sat in seat 4C, still holding his phone. He leaned over, staring at the screen as if it were a historic moment. "Holy, it just hit 50,000, he exclaimed unconsciously. Emily Reyes frowned. What hit 50,000? He held up his phone. Video of the girl who got kicked off the plane. Emily looked for a split second, and her heart sank. The video begins with Lauren standing up and yelling at Nia, "You don't belong here." She then jerks her hand away from Officer Mitchell, screaming, "You can't touch me, I know my rights." And the person filming, the passenger in seat 4C, kept the camera recording continuously without cutting, without editing, without adding commentary. Just recording the truth. Lauren poured a mimosa. Insulting staff. Refused to leave the chair. Warned by the captain. And was eventually led away. Within minutes, the video spread to TikTok, Twitter, and Reddit, like a spark hitting dry grass. Emily hurried to Nia. "Miss Carter, you should know this." Emily's voice was so low that only the two of them could hear. Nia looked at her phone, the light of the screen reflecting off her calm eyes. She didn't flinch. She didn't tense. She didn't tremble. She just sighed. Soft, but deep. As if she knew this would happen all along. "Are you okay?" Emily asked. Nia folded the phone and placed it on the small table next to the chair. "I'm fine. The video didn't say anything wrong. I'm not afraid of the truth." But Emily saw Nia's shoulders slump slightly, as if the weight of the world had just added another layer. Meanwhile, at the airport, Lauren stood in the security waiting room, her heels stained with carpet cleaner, her hair tangled, her mascara streaked. She no longer had the confidence she had before. The arrogant look was gone. Her face was ablaze with panic. She shouted to Officer Mitchell, "I demand that you call a lawyer immediately. You have no right to detain me. You are treating me like a criminal." Mitchell opened the file, his voice tired but clear. "We haven't arrested you yet. We're just asking for a statement. But your video is going viral." Did you know that Lauren stood still for a few seconds, her stiff smile trying to hide the trembling of her lips? What video? Mitchell held up the phone. She saw herself yelling at Nia, spilling her drink, protesting. She saw herself saying, "People like you sitting in the back." Lauren paled. "No, no. Who filmed this? Who gave permission?" Mitchell sighed. "Ma'am, you are in a public place. Anyone can film." Lauren looked around as if searching for an escape. But the room consisted of only 4 walls, an old wooden table, and a plastic chair that smelled strongly of bleach. She dropped into the chair. "I'm dead. Mom, I'm really dead." Mitchell looked at her, not unkindly, not sarcastically, just with the sympathy of someone who had seen too many mistakes repeated. "You should call someone." Lauren dialed her dad's number. No one answered. "Dial best friend's number." No one answers. She tried calling again. No one answered. A long silence like a death knell rang in Lauren's mind. On the plane, the story continued to turn. The cabin speaker came on again. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be taxiing to the runway in a few minutes. Thank you for your patience." Someone behind shouted, "Patience? A whole bunch of people have to wait just because one person refused to give up his seat." Another replied, "See, that's why the video went viral. People are tired of that kind of behavior." The comments started to rise in small waves. Nia sat still, staring out the window. The gray Minnesota sky cast a chilly mist over the airport. No sun, no clouds. Just a hazy sky, just how she felt. She doesn't like noise, doesn't like being the center of attention. Even less does she like discrimination being turned into a joke online. But she knew. This was an age where people used their phones to record the truth when they had no other way to protect it. And as much as she didn't want to admit it, she understood that the video could help people like her. Emily turned back to the water. "Have a drink, please." Nia took the glass of water and whispered, "Thank you." Emily looked at her apologetically. "I should have been stronger then." Nia smiled gently. "You did great. It wasn't your fault." But Emily kept her head down. Nia placed her hand on the back of Emily's hand, a small action that made the young flight attendant gag. No one lives on a constant struggle. Sometimes all it takes is a touch to know you are not alone. While the cabin was settling down, the news started to break out. A passenger opened CNN on the screen in front of him. Breaking news: viral video of airline passenger sparks outrage. Another took to Twitter reading aloud, "She's trending #1 already." #number Whitfield meltdown. A woman whispered, "If it's her, then the Whitfield family is finished." Nia closed her eyes. She wasn't happy to hear that, not elated, not triumphant. She felt only a slight sadness for a man who pushed himself to the brink because he couldn't respect others. But no one knows. The real storm has only just begun, because as the plane was about to take off, an airline employee stepped on board and gave Captain Walker an iPad. The captain opened it, looked at it for a few seconds, then his face darkened. He approached Nia. "Miss Carter, would you like to see this?" Nia received the iPad. The screen displayed a message from the federal government, John Shieldgate Cybersecurity. Request immediate confirmation from CEO Nia Carter regarding a potential security risk involving Senator Whitfield's office. Nia squeezed the edge of the iPad lightly, not because she was surprised, but because she understood the plane incident had inadvertently exposed the Whitfield family's vulnerability and the federal agencies were taking advantage. She said softly enough for Walker to hear, "Do you know what this means?" Walker nodded. "I know. And I guess you know better than I do." Nia handed back the iPad. "I'll call after landing. Don't let it affect the flight." Walker looked at Nia with deep respect. "You are really strong." Nia smiled slightly. "I have no choice." At the airport security room, Lauren finally received a call. Phone vibrated. Display name Dad. Lauren turned on the phone, almost crying. "Dad, listen to me. It's not like they spin." Her father's voice was so serious that it made Lauren freeze. "Lauren, that video is ruining Dad's career." Lauren choked. I was misunderstood. I just..." "Shut up," her father interrupted. "The FBI asked me to explain the sponsorship deal last year, and now your video is being used as evidence of domestic abuse. I didn't mean to..." Lauren sobbed. "I just wanted to sit in seat 1A, and you ruined all that for a chair." His voice broke in heavy disappointment. "Lauren, do you know what I had to do to keep things quiet? Do you understand?" Lauren stammered. "I am sorry." But her father only said the last sentence so cold that it froze her heart. "I'm going to have to cut you off from everything until this blows over. Take care of yourself." The line went dead. No words of comfort, no promise of help. Lauren stared at the dark screen, and for the first time she understood what it was like to fall into a void with no one to catch her. Nia's plane begins to take off. The engine noise grew louder, vibrating, spreading through Nia's palms that were resting on the armrest. She closed her eyes for a moment. Not to escape, but to feel that I am still standing on my own solid ground. She thought about Lauren. She thought about Emily. She thought about the people watching the video who would sympathize, and the others who would judge. Then she inhaled, released, and opened her eyes. Before her, the gray sky was gradually lightening. A new flight is about to begin. Not just this flight, but the journey that fate is taking her on. The plane's engines roared as the wheels began to roll down the runway. The steady vibrations underfoot silenced everyone, as if the chaos had never happened. But only those involved knew that chaos was only the beginning. Nia leaned her head back against the seat, her eyes half closed. Not because she was tired, but because she was preparing herself for the call she would receive after landing. A message from the Federal Security Agency was never a sign of a peaceful day. She breathed slowly, deeply, the sound of it mixing with the purr of the engine, like a rope keeping her upright for what lay ahead. But the only person who was restless in the cabin right now was Emily Reyes. Emily moved closer to Nia and whispered, "Sister Carter, something happened." Nia opened her eyes, seeing the worry clearly in the young flight attendant's eyes. "What's the matter, Emily?" Emily took out her phone. On the screen was the Twitter feed of America's largest news channel. Breaking: Senator Whitfield under federal review after viral video of daughter sparks ethics investigation. Nia sat up straight at once. No panic, no worry, just a cold focus, as if her mind had switched into another mode. "It's starting," Nia said softly. Emily swallowed. "They said the investigation team went through the funding records from 4 years ago. And this video was just the last straw." Nia nodded slightly. "I guess so." Emily hesitated for a few seconds, then asked, "Do you feel bad? I mean, one video kind of accidentally took down a politician's entire career." Nia turned the glass of water in her hand, her voice low but not cold. "Emily, we do not destroy anyone. The truth will reveal itself. And as one lives, so shall one reap." Emily nodded, but her eyes remained heavy. Nia noticed. She placed her hand on Emily's, again, a very human, very gentle action. "Kindness does not mean tolerating injustice. You understand?" Emily smiled slightly. "Yes, I understand." But while the cabin quiets on the other side of the country, one man's career is on fire. In Senator Norman Whitfield's office, the phones rang incessantly. Aides scurried back and forth, sweating, trying to juggle dozens of urgent emails. Mr. Whitfield, his hair gray and his eyes dark from lack of sleep, sat rooted to his chair. In front of him was a large screen showing a video of his daughter Lauren Whitfield being led off the plane. The moment Lauren shouted, "People like you sit in the back," was played over and over again on every newscast, every platform. An assistant said, "Sir, the sponsors are requesting an urgent meeting." They said, "If you don't make a statement now, they will freeze the sponsorship within 24 hours. Another person ran over, panting, "The ethics committee has opened a preliminary investigation. They are asking for an explanation today." A third person added the bad news. CNN confirms that the Federal Security Agency will review the contract with the company Shieldgate because the company's CEO was involved in the incident. No, this can't happen just because of an airplane seat," Mr. Whitfield muttered. But everyone in the room knew it's not the chair, it's what's behind it. A cautious employee said, "Sir, when people feel power is being abused, they will not sit still. This video just makes them see the problem clearly." Whitfield closed his eyes tightly. He remembered the last call from Lauren, her voice sobbing, panicked. "Dad, I didn't mean to. You have to help me." But all he saw was a wall coming down. Back on the plane, the message pops up: "Prepare for takeoff." The cabin was deathly silent. Emily fastened the seatbelt for an elderly passenger. Captain Walker returned from the cockpit, walked past Nia and said softly, "Miss Carter, we were instructed by command to stay in contact after landing. They said they needed to work with you as soon as possible." Nia nodded. "I know. Thank you, Captain." He tilted his head, his eyes filled with respect. "You are unusually calm." Nia smiled slightly. "When you have faced enough storms, you will learn to stand still." Walker chuckled. "Yeah, but you didn't just stand still, you stood firm." "Take off." The plane accelerated. The wind whistled, past the cabin swayed slightly, and then the Boeing lifted off the ground, piercing the gray clouds. The sky above is much brighter than below. Nia looked out the window. Outside, everything was so vast that all the noise and injustice suddenly seemed small. She thought about Lauren, not with resentment but with regret. If only she had known to stop sooner. If only she had known to respect others. If only she had known that pride is not always a strength. Sometimes it is a pit. Below, the storm had just broken out. Lauren sat in the security room, so quiet that Mitchell stopped signing papers and looked up. She stopped crying, stopped screaming, just sat there motionless like a broken branch. Mitchell said softly, "You'll be fine if you tell the truth. It's always better." Lauren looked at him, her eyes red. "No, I won't be okay. You don't know my family. My dad's a senator. My mom's a fund manager. We can't afford to be wrong." Mitchell replied non-judgmentally, "No one is infallible." Lauren laughed, but it was a crooked, bitter laugh. "You say that because you never grew up in a family where reputation was more important than breathing." Mitchell was silent. He could not deny it. Lauren leaned her forehead against the cold wooden table. "Just one sentence, just one moment of anger, and my whole life collapsed," Mitchell said softly. "Just one act of kindness can save someone." Lauren closed her eyes. The words stabbed her like a needle into an inflated balloon. She whispered, "I wish I understood that sooner." On the plane, tension rose again with a new message. The screen in front of Nia lit up with a satellite notification. "Urgent, Senator Whitfield requests immediate private communication with you after landing." She exhaled, feeling a little tired for the first time all day. Emily asked, "What's new?" Nia looked out the window. The sky was a silvery blue. "Yes, the crisis is bigger than I thought." "Are you going to see him?" Emily asked so quietly it was almost a secret. Nia didn't answer right away. She considered. She thought deeply. She remembered Lauren's actions, her insults, and the frightened look in her eyes after she was led away. Then Nia said slowly, "Meet them, but not to help them get away with it, but to see if they really want to change." Emily nodded, admiring. "You always think further than others." Nia smiled. A very small, very gentle but powerful smile. "No need to think further. It's just, I've been the one to face these things alone, and I don't want anyone else to face it that way." The plane continued to ascend into the clear sky, leaving behind the city shrouded in gray clouds. Crisis awaits below. A pivotal conversation lies ahead. A larger truth is emerging. And Nia Carter, the black woman who was insulted over a chair, is now the one who can change the future of a powerful family. The steady hum of the engine was like the heartbeat of the cabin. After nearly 20 minutes of climbing, the engine steadied, and the cabin sank into the familiar lingering silence of long-haul flights. But for Nia Carter, the silence was not what calmed her, because she knew the heaviest conversation of the day awaited at the other end of the journey. She opened her eyes slightly, her hand lightly, resting on the small wooden table in front of her. The first-class space was luxurious, but today it seemed heavier than usual, as if seat 1A could sense an approaching change. Emily Reyes stepped forward, her voice soft. "Nia, would you like something to drink? Water or ginger tea?" Nia smiled softly. "Just water, Emily. Thanks." As Emily walked toward the galley, Nia watched. Her eyes were dark, not sad but thoughtful. She could see Emily changing. The fear had faded since the incident. In its place was understanding and a quiet strength. There are moments in life that take people to a new stage. For Emily, it started with the moment Lauren yelled at her. For Nia, that moment probably started many years ago. Satellite signal lights up. Nia's front screen shook slightly, then displayed "Request secure call pending from Senator Norman Whitfield." Nia looked at the flashing blue light. She tapped the edge of the screen, neither accepting nor rejecting it. She whispered, "Not now," and closed the notification. A passenger behind her happened to say something that made her think. The middle-aged woman in seat 3C was talking on the air call phone. "I saw the video. That young lady was rude. But I didn't know this would lead to an investigation." A small reply, then the woman continued, "It's just a chair. Why is it so serious?" Nia shifted slightly. Not out of annoyance, just, she was used to it. People who haven't lived through it don't understand. They think it's just a seat dispute. But for Nia, for Emily, for so many women of color, it's a manifestation of something bigger. Nia took a deep breath. Captain Walker returns. He walked over to Nia's chair and tapped it lightly. Miss Carter, I was informed that Senator Whitfield's office will attempt to contact you again. Nia nodded. I know. Walker said, his voice stern but full of goodwill. If you feel pressured, just say so. We will handle it for you. No one has the right to force you to talk. Nia looked at him. Her smile was a light nod. Thanks, Captain. But I'll talk to him myself. I need to know what he wants. The captain clasped his hands behind his back. In the military, I learned that the most important conversations happen between two people who see both the light and the darkness in each other. Nia tilted her head, thanking him with her eyes. Below ground, the collapse was happening faster than expected. The atmosphere in Senator Whitfield's office was thick. The communications team, legal counsel, policy staff were all in a frenzy. Mr. Whitfield, NBC News just posted, evidence of shady funding linked to Shieldgate resurfaced. Another assistant ran in, people are calling for a full investigation. The hashtag number Whitfield accountability is trending in the top 3. A member of the government relations team sighed. Without a strong response, his career could be over before the next election. The senator stared at the screen where the image of his daughter being led away in handcuffs was shown again. He muttered as if talking to himself, Lauren, what did you do? But deep down he knew it wasn't just Lauren's fault. The cracks started long before that. Children raised in powerful environments sometimes fail to learn the most basic thing, humility. Back on the plane, the sky gradually turned dark blue. Emily brings water to Nia. What do you think the senator wants from you? Emily asked. Nia gently swirled the glass of water. Usually there are only a few possibilities. 1. He wants to apologize. 2. He wants to save his career through me. 3. He wants to find a way to minimize the consequences for his daughter. Emily frowned. If it were you, which one would you accept? Nia didn't answer right away. She looked out the window, where the sun was beginning to cast a pale yellow glow through the clouds. Emily, sometimes people don't need an apology. They need real change. Emily nodded slightly, understanding somewhat. Surprise. The cabin shook slightly. There was a loud ding. The plane suddenly dropped several feet. Passengers startled. Walker said from the cabin over the loudspeaker, Ladies and gentlemen, we are entering light turbulence. Please hold on to your seatbelts. The cabin grew quieter. As the plane shook again, a passenger in the back cabin shouted, Oh my, no more story. Emily ran a row check. Nia placed her hand on her chest, feeling her own breathing. Not because she was afraid, but because this shaking reminded her of her childhood. Nia's memories, age 9. Little Nia sat on the school bus, a pale yellow bus with cold vinyl seats. Her friends talked and laughed, but in the front row 3 white boys whispered and pointed. An older boy said, Hey, that girl, why is she sitting here? She should be sitting at the school over there. They all burst out laughing. Nia bowed her head, hugging her backpack. She didn't understand why the words made her throat tighten. But she remembered the bus driver's eyes clearly. He looked at her in the rearview mirror, a gentle, protective look. He said clearly, No one decides where you sit. You sit right where you belong. The girl nodded slightly. Those words haunted her for the rest of her life. Back to the present, the vibration subsided. The plane stabilized. Nia pursed her lips and whispered, No one decides where I belong. Emily approached. Are you okay, Nia? Nia smiled slightly. Fine. Just remembering something. The satellite signal lit up a second time. This time the cabin didn't shake too much. But Nia felt a slight rocking sensation, like the surface of water being blown by the wind. Second request, Senator Norman Whitfield awaits your acceptance. Emily looked at the screen, then looked at Nia. Will you answer? Nia sat up straight. She regulated her breathing. The glass of water was placed on the table without making a sound. There was no hesitation in her eyes now, but rather a quiet determination. The kind of strength one can only have after having been judged, doubted, looked down upon so many times, and still standing firm. She touched the button Accept Call. The screen goes into security mode. Name Sen. Norman Whitfield, secure line connected. Emily took a few steps back, as if knowing this moment was too important to be interrupted. On the screen appeared the image of the senator, his face haggard as if he had just gone through a sleepless night. He said, "First, Miss Carter, thank you for agreeing to talk. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I really need a frank conversation." Nia said nothing. She just nodded slightly, signaling him to continue. The senator swallowed his hands, gripping the edge of the table. "I want to apologize. On behalf of my family, on behalf of my daughter, on behalf of everything that should never have happened to you." He paused for a few seconds. "But I also know an apology isn't enough." Nia looked at the screen. Her eyes were deep but not cold. Just a woman who had seen too much hypocrisy to believe in empty words. Nia asked slowly, "So, what do you want from me, Senator?" His face paled, but he did not shy away. "I want a chance to make things right. Just a small chance. To save the family's reputation. And most of all, to let my daughter learn what I didn't teach her well enough." Nia was silent. In those few seconds the cabin shook slightly again. But this time it was Nia's silence that made the air more tense than the vibrations of the plane. Then she said, "Mr. Whitfield, to continue this conversation, I need to know one thing first." The senator swallowed hard. "What?" Nia asked, her eyes never leaving him. "Do you want to save your daughter or save your career?" The senator paused. It was a question no one wanted to hear, much less answer. The screen shook slightly. The line was silent for a few seconds. Then he said very softly, very honestly, "I don't know, Miss Carter." The screen flickered as the signal stabilized. Senator Norman Whitfield's image froze in the dim blue glow of the plane's satellite link. His face no longer looked like that of a powerful politician, but rather like a father standing at the edge of a precipice, trying to hold on to something that was slipping away. Nia's question cut like a knife. "Do you want to save your daughter or save your career, Mr.?" Whitfield was silent for a long time. Behind him the office was in chaos. Assistants were running around, indicator lights were flashing. For a moment it was as if the world had closed in on just the two of them. He exhaled a sigh that sounded like the last thread being stretched to the point of snapping. "I don't know, Miss Carter." Nia looked straight at the screen. Her eyes were not angry nor cold. They were like the eyes of someone who had experienced something deep, understanding and painful in an old way. "You don't know," Nia repeated softly, but with the sound of metal hitting a wooden table. "That's the most dangerous thing." The senator bowed his head. "You are right." The plane shook slightly. Emily stepped back, but still listened from a distance, not out of curiosity, but because Emily understood that this conversation would shape the fates of many people, not just Nia, not just Lauren. Nia sat up straight, hands on the table as if keeping her own rhythm. "Senator Whitfield," she said slowly, "before I decide whether or not to continue this conversation, I want to understand how things came to this. Lauren's behavior isn't something that happened overnight." Mr. Whitfield closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, the politician's arrogance was gone. What remained was a father who had missed out on so much. "You're right. Lauren doesn't just act like that." His voice trembled slightly. "But I didn't see." Nia didn't push. She waited. Finally, the senator said, "Lauren grew up in a house where fame was the breath and power was the air." He paused as if touching an old wound. "My wife and I always put expectations on her. To be perfect, to be strong, to maintain an image. She lives in such comparison and pressure that she feels entitled to not lose." Nia listened, her eyes non-judgmental. "You know what the worst thing is?" he asked. Nia was silent. A painful smile crossed his face. "In our house, sorry is a word that doesn't exist. Neither his mother nor I ever taught him responsibility. We only taught him one thing. He swallowed victory at all costs." That statement made the cabin feel colder. "Abin, what a hot day when sun bid rog." Nia leaned back in her chair thinking. Finally, she asked, "Do you think Lauren understands the consequences of what she did?" The senator replied immediately, "No, but it's starting." He slowly said, "Lauren called me this morning. She was crying. She hadn't cried like that since she was little. She said she didn't understand why people hated her. She said she didn't understand why the video went viral. She just didn't understand." He stopped, his voice choked. "And that was my fault too." Nia put the glass of water on the table. "Mr. Whitfield," she said, her voice soft but sharp as a winter wind, "I have no obligation to help your family, but I am willing to listen if you truly want to change." The senator breathed heavily as if a burden had been lifted. "I want to. I really want to." He looked straight into the camera. "I know I'm losing everything, but what scares me most isn't losing my seat in Congress. It's losing my daughter. A simple truth, not said for strategy but from real pain." The plane entered the thin air, the cabin lit up. Nia looked at the sunlight streaming through the window. She felt her heart become calmer. "There's something I need to ask you," Nia said, "and I need the truth." The senator nodded without hesitation. "You ask." Nia said bluntly, 4 years ago, Shieldgate was selected for your funding program, but it was reported that a rival group filed a complaint about racial bias. Are you aware of that?" The senator closed his eyes. The whole cabin held its breath. Finally he replied, "Have." Nia tilted her head slightly. "And you let it go," he replied without hesitation, "because I believe you can do it, because you're good, because your profile is far superior to other companies. And I don't want to let race factor into that decision." Nia looked at him for a few seconds longer. "So, why do you want me to help you now?" she asked. "Is it because I'm the victim in the video, or because I'm the only African-American CEO with enough influence to turn this story around?" The senator took a deep breath and spoke with naked honesty. "Both." That moment, the air was completely silent. Not an uncomfortable silence, but the silence of the truth that has just been laid on the table, heavy but necessary. A small gust of wind touched the plane window. Nia placed her hands on the armrests of her chair. She spoke word by word. "Mr. Whitfield, I'm not here to be anyone's shield. Do you understand?" He nodded vigorously. "I don't want you to be my shield. I want you to help me understand something I haven't seen in 30 years of politics." Nia slightly curled her lips, a slightly sad smile. "What?" the senator replied. "That power does not give anyone the right to treat others badly." Nia looked at him for a long time. Then she asked the most important question of all. "Are you really willing to change? Not to save your career, not to cover up your daughter's mistakes, but to become a better person." In the true sense of the word, the senator was silent. Then he placed his hand on his heart as if swearing to himself, "Yes, I want to start here." Cabin signaled to prepare meal. Emily turned back, standing a few rows away, not daring to disturb her. But Nia looked at her, smiled, signaling that everything was okay. Then Nia turned back to the screen. "I won't help you hide anything. I won't change my story. But I'm willing to talk again when we land. On one condition." The senator held his breath. "What conditions?" Nia said, her voice clear as a knock on glass. "Lauren is responsible, and you must let her learn that." The senator closed his eyes. A tear fell. "I agree." Nia nodded slightly, ending the call. Screen off. The cabin returned to the steady sound of the engine. Nia leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes, not because she was tired, but because she knew the meeting after landing would not be just talking. It will be the turning point of the whole story, and maybe of a lifetime. As the plane began its descent, the cabin shook slightly like a sigh of relief. Sunlight filtered through the last of the clouds, bathing Nia Carter's face in a warm golden hue, a stark contrast to the heaviness that awaited her below. Emily Reyes stepped forward, her hand lightly holding the edge of the chair. "Sister Nia, we're about to land." Nia opened her eyes. Her gaze was as calm as a lake, yet unfathomably deep. "Are you okay?" Nia asked. Emily nodded, but there was still worry in her eyes. "I just hope the meeting won't be too tense." Nia placed her hand on Emily's and said softly, "Stress never held me back. You know that." Emily gave a small, albeit shaky smile. The plane's wheels hit the ground with a long sound of tires. A soft, resounding crash pierced the cabin. Then the engine noise died down, the plane slowed. The cabin shook, then quieted. Nia took a deep breath. The moment of touching the ground always reminded her of a very real thing. No matter how high one flies, one must return to the ground to face reality. Captain James Walker spoke over the loudspeaker. "Welcome to Chicago. Please remain seated until the plane comes to a complete stop." A passenger behind let out a sigh of relief. "Finally here." Another person smiled slightly at Nia as he passed by. "Good luck. I think you'll need it." Nia just smiled. A calm smile, neither showing off nor avoiding. Airport police and federal agents on standby. When the plane door opened, a cold wind rushed in. The early morning Chicago wind always felt steely, sharp, cold, and real. Going downstairs, Nia noticed that the reception area was partially blocked off. A man in a black jacket carrying a sign, "Miss Nia Carter, DHS Liaison." He bowed his head. "Thank you for your time, Miss Carter. We have been assigned to escort you to conference room number 4. Nia nodded slightly. "Is Senator Whitfield there?" "Yes." "And he went alone." Nia frowned slightly. It was unusual for a senator to go into an emergency meeting alone without counsel or media. Emily looked on, her eyes full of worry. "Nia-san, are you sure you're okay?" Nia smiled reassuringly. "Emily, I have faced people much stronger than him, but thank you." Emily held Nia's hand sincerely. "You're not just strong, you're also very kind. I hope they deserve your kindness." Nia squeezed Emily's hand lightly, then left with the escort. Inside, meeting room number 4, the air was frozen. The door closed behind Nia, revealing a large room lit with cold white fluorescent lights. At the head of the long table stood Senator Norman Whitfield, no coat, no tie, his face so weary he seemed to have aged 10 years in just a few hours. He turned around as soon as he heard footsteps. "Miss Carter." Nia replied softly, "Senator Whitfield." He held out his hand for a shake, a gesture that was awkward but sincere. Nia shook it but withdrew it more quickly than usual. Not to be rude, just to keep boundaries. He invited her to sit down. Both were silent for a few seconds. Nia was the one to speak. "I hope you have given more thought to that question." The senator nodded. "I've been thinking about it the whole time you were flying, and I have my answer." He looked down at the table, then looked up, his eyes filled with unconcealed pain. "I want to save my daughter from the very pride I let her grow up in." A real, unvarnished answer. Nia tilted her head slightly. "What do you mean by that?" He reached for a thin file and pushed it towards Nia. "This is what you need to see." Secret files. Nia opened the file. The first line made her eyes slow down. Behavioral Intervention Report. Lauren Whitfield, age 17. One is a psychological report. Another is a note from a school counselor. Some underlined passages. Problems controlling emotions. Tendency to react in extreme ways when challenged. Intolerance of opposing opinions. Signs of feeling too powerful. Another piece of paper. Accident report. Lauren Whitfield involved in confrontation at private event. Claimed preferential treatment. Witnesses confirm verbal harassment. Nia turned to the last page. A handwritten line. The family refused psychological counseling. The request was put on hold at the request of the senator. Nia closed the file. Her fingers paused on the cover, as if feeling the warmth of the past story. The senator sighed. "I told them to drop everything. I thought it would protect her. I thought reputation was more important than treatment." He looked at Nia like she was confessing, "And today, when I saw it being taken away, I realized that I had neglected it for more than 10 years. Nia asked, her voice very slow. "Why are you showing me these things?" The senator replied immediately without beating around the bush. "Let me tell you, she's not evil. She's just been raised wrong." Nia frowned. "I'm not a therapist. I don't fix people." "No," he shook his head. "I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to help me teach it a good lesson. A lesson I never learned." Nia was silent. She looked out the frosted glass door. The sound of a trolley could be heard from outside. She remembered Lauren's eyes as they'd been led away, not just angry but scared, not just proud but confused. A part of her that wasn't bad, just lost. Mr. Whitfield put his hands on the table. "Miss Carter, I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm just asking for the chance to learn what you learned on your own." Nia let out a soft breath. "What do you want me to do?" He swallowed. "See him, talk to him. Let him understand the true impact of his actions." Nia frowned. "I am not the person it respects." The senator looked deep into her eyes. "That's why you're the only one it will listen to." Climax. One thing he didn't say. Nia felt something was left unsaid. She asked, "Senator, anything else?" He clenched his fists. "There is one thing." He stood up, walked toward the door, and turned back as if struggling with a secret heavier than anything before. "Lauren has another profile, one that only her mother and I know about." Nia sat up straight. "What is that?" He turned back, his eyes straight, painful and honest, to the point that the room seemed to shrink. "Lauren doesn't just have an attitude problem. She has a problem with cause and effect. She doesn't understand that actions have consequences." Nia was stunned for a second. "That is..." The senator trembled slightly. The doctor said, "If she didn't intervene soon, Lauren would live her whole life believing the world had to bend to her will." He choked, "And I missed my only chance to heal her." There was a silence long enough to hear the air conditioner. "From Onnes, instated might, with a nasten by two, and bingastide." Nia put down the file and stood up. She stepped across from the senator. Not too close to be intimate, not too far to be cold. "Mr. Whitfield," she said, her voice low but firm, "I will see Lauren." He took a deep breath. "Thank you." Nia raised her hand to stop him. "But not to protect you, nor to protect your family's career." Her eyes were like a lake that had just been blown by the wind, deep and moving. "I'm going to tell her what no one has ever said to her." She paused, then enunciated the words, "That privilege is never a weapon, but only a burden if not used properly." The senator nodded, tears welling in his eyes. The door opened, cold wind rushed in. The escort asked, "Miss Carter, we'll take you to where Lauren is waiting." Nia turned back to look at the senator one last time. "I will talk to her, but you must let her face the consequences." He bowed his head. "I promise." Nia stepped outside. The long hallway, the white light illuminating her figure, strong yet soft. A woman about to enter a conversation that could forever change a girl's future, and possibly that of a powerful family. Nia Carter followed her escort down the long corridor of airport security. The hallway was straight. The white fluorescent lights seemed to cast a cold mist over the air. The sound of her shoes was soft, even and calm, but inside she knew she was about to face something very human. Not rank, not power, but a young girl who was never taught responsibility. The escort stopped in front of a gleaming steel door. "Lauren Whitfield is inside. We'll wait outside if you need us." He spoke with rare respect. Nia nodded slightly. "I want to see you privately." The escort opened the door. A cold air rushed out as if from a long untouched void. Nia entered. The door closed behind her. Lauren Whitfield sat at the corner of the wooden table, her coat draped over her chair, her blonde hair a mess, her face haggard like someone who hadn't slept for several nights. Unlike her aggressive image on the plane, Lauren now looked more like a lost child than a troublemaker. She looked up when she heard the door close. "It's you." Not a greeting, just a truth, spoken through a heavy breath. Nia replied in a soft voice, "That's right." Lauren looked down at the table immediately, as if not daring to meet Nia's eyes. A heavy silence fell in the room. Nia walked over and pulled out a chair to sit across from Lauren, keeping a comfortable distance. Not threatening, not intimate. Lauren bit her lip, her hands clenching the hem of her jacket. "Are you here to blame me?" Nia shook her head. "No, I came to talk." Lauren laughed, a hollow laugh. "Talk to me, after all." Nia nodded. "That's right." Lauren bit her lip, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. "I know. I was wrong. I know. The whole world says so. The press tore me to pieces. People called me a monster, a racist, $1 million Karen." She laughed, but tears rolled down. "What else can I do?" Nia didn't interrupt. She let Lauren talk. "Sometimes what people need most is to say the things they've never dared to say before." Lauren wiped her tears hastily, as if afraid to reveal any weakness. "I don't understand why it blew up like that. I just wanted the chair. Just the chair." Nia looked at her deeply. "No, Lauren. It's not the chair. It's how you think you're more worthy than everyone else." Lauren stopped, as if stabbed in the heart. The room fell silent for a moment. Nia continued, her voice like flowing water, not urgent, not strong, but sure. "The chair is just an excuse. What makes the world angry is that you think others are inferior to you when you know nothing about them." Lauren swallowed, her fingers trembling. I didn't mean to." "But you did," Nia said, her voice low but clear. "And today, you have to face it." Lauren bowed her head. A tear fell onto the table. "My father..." He was devastated. Her voice was thin as silk. "I heard him talking to his advisors. They were talking about his career, about funding, about investigations." Nia kept quiet to let Lauren continue. "But no one asked me how scared I was," Lauren said, her voice cracking. "No one asked me why I was so angry, why I was overreacting. They just wanted me to shut up and let them handle it." Nia asked softly, "What about you? Have you ever wondered why you react like that?" Lauren bit her lip until it turned white. "I do not know." Nia didn't push. She understood that psychological cracks were never exposed by force. She said, "I looked at the file." Lauren jumped, eyes wide. "What file?" "Psychological counseling records from when she was 17. Lauren fell silent. Her face paled. "Dad gave it to you?" Nia nodded slightly. Lauren looked to the corner of the room, her lips trembling. She whispered, "I don't want anyone to see it. No one." Nia said, her voice warm, "I'm not here to judge you." Lauren looked up at Nia, her eyes filled with doubt and hope. "No judgment after what I told you," Nia sighed softly. "Lauren, I've spent my whole life dealing with people who hate me because of the color of my skin, where I am, or because they just don't understand me. I don't need another hater. I want to understand you." Lauren touched her chest as if in disbelief. "You want to understand me?" "Correct." A new tear fell. Lauren didn't wipe it away. She let it fall. Nia continued slowly but surely. "It says in your file you have a problem with understanding cause and effect. You can't tell the difference between a rational reaction and an emotional outburst. And that's not your fault. But how you treat other people is your responsibility." Lauren let go of her shirt, placed it on the table, and opened it, a sign of soft surrender. "I don't know where to start." Nia leaned back in her chair. "I'll start by telling the truth. What made you yell at me on the plane?" Lauren closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she spoke, her voice breaking. "I was afraid of being seen as weak, afraid of being told I was useless. Afraid that if I gave in I would be seen as a failure in the family again." Nia listened very attentively. Lauren continued, her voice breaking. "I grew up in a house where power was everything. Control was everything. I was never taught how to admit my mistakes. I was never taught how to say sorry. If I did something wrong, Dad would cover it up. If I behaved badly, Mom would explain it. But no one ever told me I was really wrong. And when she stood there, calm, confident, without yelling, I felt small. She sobbed, I get angry because I'm scared. Nia was silent for a few seconds. In that moment she realized Lauren wasn't quite the person the world was angry about. There was a part of her that was never taught how to grow up. Nia placed her hands on the table, leaning slightly towards Lauren. Lauren, emotions are not an excuse to hurt others, but fear can be the starting point for change. Lauren looked up, her eyes red but a little brighter than before. Can I fix it? Nia nodded, her eyes like sunlight piercing through the clouds. If you want to learn, if you want to take responsibility. Lauren swallowed, trying to muster up her courage. I want to, but I don't know what to do first. Nia said each word clearly. I will apologize. Not to the media, not to save my reputation, but to become a better version of myself. Lauren tilted her head. Sorry, who? Nia replied. Emily Reyes. Lauren opened her eyes wide. Her butt. I don't even remember her face clearly. Nia looked straight. And that is the biggest problem. Lauren was silent. Then she nodded very slowly. I will. Nia stood up. Lauren also stood up instinctively. As Nia reached the door, Lauren called out softly, Miss Carter. Nia turned back. Lauren looked at her, no longer arrogant, no longer defensive. Just a girl learning to grow up. Thank you for not abandoning me like everyone else. Nia smiled softly, a gentle but sad smile. I'm not doing this for Mr. Whitfield. I'm doing it because I was misunderstood. And I don't want anyone else stuck in that wound. She opened the door. The hallway light flooded in. Lauren spoke softly but loud enough for Nia to hear. I'm sorry. Nia stopped, not turning back. That's the first step. There's a long road ahead. She walked out, leaving Lauren standing alone, but for the first time, no longer in the dark. The Chicago afternoon brought a distinct chill through the large glass panels, casting a pale but peaceful gray over the airport. Nia Carter stepped out of the room to meet Lauren, and as usual she paused for a few seconds to take a deep breath. There was something about the air here that made one feel as if one were standing on solid ground. And today, Nia felt it clearly. She didn't come out of a conversation. She came out of a transformation. The escort approached. Miss Carter, the senator is waiting for you in the next room. Nia nodded slightly. Thank you. But let me go slowly. Those words were not to avoid anyone, but to give her enough time to piece together the emotions that were still floating in her heart. Her boots echoed evenly on the smooth tile floor. Her steps were not hurried, not slow. They spoke of a balance she had long since acquired. As she entered the next room, Senator Norman Whitfield stood up immediately. He wasn't trying to smile. He wasn't trying to be brave. Just a man facing the consequences of things he'd missed for too long. Miss Carter, how is she? His voice was filled with unease he no longer tried to hide. Nia didn't answer right away. She looked at him for a long moment, as if evaluating not the question, but the person behind it. Then she said, She heard me, Mr. Whitfield breathed out, almost trembling. Thank you. Thank you. Nia raised her hand. Don't thank her yet. She's just heard. But there's still a long way to go. He nodded, his eyes showing humility for the first time in his life. I get it. A slight silence fell. Nia was weighing what she was about to say, like weighing a small but important weight. Lauren can change, Nia said. But it's up to you. You have to get it right this time. The senator pursed his lips. I will. I promise. Nia took a step forward. Promises without action are just an elaborate evasion. Soft words but hit harder than any criticism. Mr. Whitfield bowed his head, a bow not of shame but of recognition of the truth he had so long avoided. I will act. His voice was low and matter-of-fact. Then he took a folded piece of paper from his bag. I want you to know, I have written to withdraw my candidacy. Nia paused slightly. Are you sure? He nodded. I have been in power for so long that I have forgotten what it means to serve, and if I don't change, neither will my daughter. He placed the paper in front of Nia as a way to prove his words, "I want to start over." As a father who knows he was wrong, not as a politician trying to hold on to his position, Nia looked at the paper. The handwriting was shaky but determined. Then she looked up. "If this is your choice, I respect it." His eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Miss Carter. Thank you for reminding me to see what's most important." Outside the glass door, the sun began to set, shining down on the airport in a golden light like a streak of rebirth. Nia walked out of the room, and Emily Reyes was waiting. Emily ran back, worried and hopeful. "Nia-san, are you okay?" Nia smiled, a tired but warm smile. "Okay. Everything is going well." Emily breathed a sigh of relief. "I heard the senator made a big decision." Nia gently. "Everyone has a moment when they have to face the true values they want to live by. Today, he did." Emily looked at her as if she were a miracle. "You do what many people can't, not by power, but by talking like a human being." Nia smiled. "Sometimes the strongest thing is calm." Emily took Nia's hand and squeezed it gently. "You're always like that. Calm, strong, and makes others want to be better." Nia tilted her head slightly, her eyes gentle. "That's the only way we can avoid becoming the version of ourselves that others impose on us." They walked down the corridor together. Nothing more was said. The silence was not heavy but soft as music at the end of the day. As she reached the great hall, there were several gazes on Nia, a little shy, a little admiring, and a little silent thanks. An older woman stepped forward and placed her hand on Nia's shoulder. "I saw the video," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "The way you handled it was amazing. Not everyone can keep their composure like you do." Nia just smiled. "Thank you. I just did what I thought was right." The woman shook her head. "Not everyone can do that. You have given more people hope than you think." Nia bowed her head in thanks, then looked towards the glass door where the sunset was falling very slowly. Hope. Such a simple word. But sometimes just one person standing strong in the storm is enough to make others believe that good things still exist. As she was about to leave the airport, Emily asked Nia-san, "How do you feel about today?" Nia stopped. She closed her eyes for a few seconds, then opened them, her gaze deep but not sad. "I see. Everyone has wounds. Some people carry them for so long that they think it's their character." Emily nodded slightly, understanding somewhat. Nia continued, "But if Lauren dares to face it today, if the senator dares to admit his mistakes, then anyone can change." She turned to Emily and smiled warmly. "And that's what makes me believe there's still hope in this world." Emily squeezed Nia's hand as if wanting to retain some of that warmth. "I believe so too." Nia stepped outside. The afternoon wind blew through her hair, cool, real, and invigorating. She knows she has a long way to go. She knows there will be people who will look down on her because of the color of her skin or her position. But she also knows that every time she stands firm, she paves the way for others like her. And sometimes, just one person standing firm is enough to change the atmosphere of the whole room. Before ending the video, I would like to invite you, the person listening to this story, to take a second to think, how many times in our lives do we react to fears we don't recognize? How many times do we look at someone through a lens of prejudice without understanding what wounds they carry? If Nia's story touches you, if you believe that calm, compassion, and responsibility can change others, please give the channel a like, a share, and a subscribe so we can continue to bring healing, profound, and very real stories like this one. Thank you for making it this far. I hope you find a little light for yourself today.